Welcome once again to Temple Beth Sholom. It's an honor for us to be able to host this evening. Before we begin, we're going to light the Hanukkah candles for tonight. I think it's an uplifting way to begin, and it's also a way to send a message to the world that we are the people that dispels the darkness. Even in the darkest of times, we bring the light forth. Banu choshech legaresh. And so it's an important message. I'm going to please ask us to rise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu v'mitzvotav, וציוונו להדליק נר של חנוכה. ברוך אתה אדוני, אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשה ניסים לאבותינו בימים ההם בזמן הזה.
Please join us as we sing Ma'ot Tzor all together. Ma'ot Tzor Yeshuati Lecha na'eh leshabeach Tikon beit tefilati V'sham toda nizabeach V'shem techin madbeach Metzar ham naveach, hazegmor b'shir mizmor, Hanukat hamizbeach, hazegmor b'shir mizmor, Hanukat hamizbeach.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephanie Tuzman, President and CEO of Jewish Nevada. Thank you so much again for being here. Sorry, I'm having a hard time with that. While it is a dark time for Israel and for Jews worldwide, I share Rabbi's sentiment that I'm incredibly grateful that this community is continuing to come together and to bring light into the world, especially during the holiday of Hanukkah. We're reminded that this is not the first time our people have been tested, and we will prevail. I was just in Israel last week, from Monday evening until Wednesday evening, if you could believe it. And I was trying to count while I was on the plane and think about how many times I've been to Israel. I think this one was my 18th trip, which really was very significant and meaningful at a moment like this, where 18 means chai and life, and this particular trip, or rather mission, signified just that. We were on a mission to bear witness, to stand in solidarity, and to show support. We met Osnat, whose brothers, Eli and Yossi, are both currently captive in Gaza. We saw the destruction in Kibbutz Nir Oz. We met the families who survived and are now attempting to rebuild their lives. And we saw how your immense support is helping them through this incredible time of need. We were also on a mission to hear as many stories as we could and to bring those stories home to all of you, which is why we're incredibly honored to have these families with us here tonight, so that you can hear their stories, so that we can continue to amplify their voices. Please, please know that we are praying with you and standing together with you, praying for your loved one's safe return.
Good evening. My name is Ofra Etzion, and I'm the Regional Director of IEC Las Vegas, the Israeli American Council. Feeling of fears uncertainty, pride, and insecurity are some of the emotions that have been presented in us in recent weeks. Anti-Semitism is rising in the world, and suddenly the voices of reason seems to fade away. But the Jewish people cannot be broken. We've already been through tough times, and now is our time to stand together. This week, we are celebrating the Festival of Light, and it made me wonder if perhaps the essence of this holiday is that in order to see the light, we must acknowledge the darkness. Yes, it's very dark and difficult right now. Most of us might not feel like celebrating. Yet, even within this darkness, there are many, many small candles that comfort and even bring joy. They not be strong light, but they are light. They are hope. And no matter how much our enemy will try, they won't succeed in putting out this light for us. Dear family of the hostages, our hearts are with you. The Israeli American and the Jewish American community won't forget October 7. We did not move on. Your pain is our pain. Your sorrow is our sorrow. We stand by you, unwavering in our commitment to support and advocate for your loved ones. We will not let the story fade away, nor we will allow the struggle to be forgotten. We are grateful you came all the way to Las Vegas to share your story and help us understand what is that are you going through. I would like to introduce Mati, who will give you an introduction of who he is, and the organization, and the families. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you to Jewish Nevada and IAC, to Allison Fine and the entire Fine family for bringing us to Las Vegas. It's been a really amazing day for us to be embraced by the Jewish community so warmly here, and we want to thank you for that, and we thank you for listening. I'm really here representing the Hostages and Missing Persons Family Forum, which is the organization that was formed very quickly after October 7th. Obviously, October 7th is a day that is now part of the dark history of the people of Israel and will remain with us forever. It's important to acknowledge that our hostages have been in Gaza for 66 days now. There are 137 hostages still in Gaza tonight, 17 women, 2 children. And when I think about the fact that this is Hanukkah, I'm reminded that this holiday starts with our people losing the temple and a cruel oppressor coming to take away not only our Judaism but our country. And that only through the strength and heroism of the Maccabees did we prevail. And we are fortunate to have with us our own Maccabee. My friend Sid, who you're going to hear from in a second, was there on October 7th and was an eyewitness to the terrible events. Sid, if you'd be so kind to share your story.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I live not far from here in San Francisco with my wife and my son. But I was born and raised in Israel and served 8 years as Israeli Special Forces. And we were in Israel for vacation for the Chagim. And on October 7th, when the news broke at 7 o'clock in the morning, my wife told me, "Did you see what's happening?" I said to my wife, "Yes, but I think it's maybe 40, 50 terrorists, not anything bigger." An hour later, and one of my friends calls me and says, "Come, we're going." There's moments in your life, and particularly in the Special Forces, when the camaraderie is so tight that you just do what people tell you to do. And that was one of those moments. At 8:30, I was in a base in the center of Israel with 4 other men signing on a gun that isn't calibrated to my eye. And by 9 o'clock, we were fully equipped, driving in a private car to the south, using WhatsApp to figure out where we're needed the most. There were 30 points of invasion. This is already 2.5 hours into the invasion. So there were 30 points of invasion, 6 very challenging points: Be'eri, Kfar Aza, Nir Oz, Zaparti, Sderot, and Nachal Oz. We understood that there's no reinforcements that is going to go to Nachal Oz, so we decided to go there. At 10 o'clock roughly, we understand that this is the most challenging thing, 9:30, 10, that this is the most challenging thing that we're ever going to do. And we never trained for such a challenge. And we thought it might take days. By 10:30, we started seeing the worst things that I ever saw in my life on a highway in our country, in our homeland, Israel. People shot in the middle of the highway, lines of cars with dead people, burned people in burned cars. And then we got closer to the kibbutz. We were in the WhatsApp group of the kibbutz, and we could see the messages and how people were begging for help. Before we arrived at the kibbutz, we saw 2 Hamas terrorists driving towards us. We took them out from a driving car, which is challenging. And we took their communication devices, their walkie-talkies. That saved our lives, and mostly saved many others. And I'm here to speak because of that moment. Since we can speak Arabic, we started listening to what they're doing. But when we arrived into the kibbutz, we saw a young girl lying in between 2 cars. And we thought she was hiding. But when we got close to her, it was very clear, sadly, that she was brutally murdered. A young 6-year-old girl lying flat on her stomach. We couldn't do too much, and as an IDF soldier, you have one mission. And that mission is to save as many civilians and citizens that you can. So there's no emotions. It's a very cold job. We heard that they're abducting kids in the kibbutz, so we drove, we exchanged fire with the abductors. We were able to save those 2 kids, 4 and 8. Could be my kids. And we dropped a pin of where we are in the kibbutz. This is already around 11, so 4.5 hours into the invasions. Most of the families are hiding and panicking in the bomb shelters, in the mamads, the safe rooms. So to ask one of the families to come one moment outside is a mission for itself. And we are standing in the open area in the kibbutz with those two beautiful kids, exchanging fire, but we need to keep those kids safe. One family was willing to open their house. They took those two beautiful kids into their arms. And then we ran to an empty house. We each stood next to a window. The only reason why we ran into an empty house is because at least we will be a bit safe and can exchange fire with a bit of protection. So we each stood next to a window and started exchanging fire from them. The challenging part is we could hear everything that they are doing because they had their communication device. We could hear how they praised their barbarians' acts on kids and women. Since 4 of us are married, it was terrible to hear. But sadly, it's like chess, and you need to sacrifice 1 to save 10. So what we did is we told them in Arabic, my friend told them in Arabic, like he's one of them, that they need to be careful from other houses because women are shooting. And if a woman kills you in Islam, then you're not a shaheed, and there's no 72 virgins, so it's really scary for them. The other thing that he did, so that's called pushing away from other places, but then he calls them to us. He created a honey trap. And he told them where we are, and told them that we're injured and we're special forces. And he said, oh, we just abducted 2 special forces, and we're going to Gaza, and there's 10 more special forces left. So they came to us, because for them, an injured special forces is the best trophy, if they can kidnap you. So they came to us, and every 30 minutes, he did it again and again and again. By 2 o'clock, we almost were out of ammunition. I had maybe 10 bullets left after shooting more than 1,000. And then Maglan charged, one of the special forces units, charged the kibbutz, started clearing house by house. 20 minutes into when Maglan came in, their commander got killed and 3 others. So the kibbutz was not safe. We joined Maglan roughly at 2:30 and went with them house by house, cleared the kibbutz. We engaged with fire at 3, at 4, at 5. At 7 o'clock is the only time that the kibbutz was really safe. So those citizens sat in fear for 12 hours. We drove back home to the base, and there was complete silence. Nobody spoke at all for 2 hours. No music. We each processed what we just saw, and we arrived at the base and each went to a corner. It was looking back, it was almost coordinated. Each went to his own place and cried by himself, and then we all came together and cried together. Then I drove back to my wife in the center of Israel, and she came running down the stairs and said, "Thank you for doing it for us." I joined the interrogations, and one day after, I'm not an interrogator, but they needed help. And one day after an interrogation, I was driving home, and said to myself, why did she say thank you for doing it for us? Who did she mean? We live in California. So I asked her, who did you say thank you for doing it for us? For me and you? For me, you and my parents? It was literally a moment before we went to sleep. And she said, thank you for doing it for the Jewish people. That's who you did it for. This is most likely the last time that I'm going to speak on this, because I'm doing it for 2 months. I hope you're all aware of an operation called Entebbe operation, which airplane got kidnapped to Uganda. Yoni Netanyahu, before the operation, stood and said the following: "We are going to an operation tens of thousands of kilometers from here to save Israelis and Jews. And it's only because they're Israelis and Jews. And if we won't do it, nobody else will do it for us. It's a long, hard, and challenging operation, but I want to state that the success or the failure of this operation depends just on us. I believe that we will succeed. B'atzlacha." And I think those words are still very accurate. We have many more hostages to save, and it depends just on us. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Sid. It does depend on us, and it depends on every one of us to do their part, and there's a lot that we can all do. The thing about Sid is that Sid is a soldier with a purpose and a mission and blessed with a lot of bravery. But the people that you're about to hear about, they're not soldiers. They're just civilians like us, like your children. I want to invite Noga to talk about her nephew, Alon.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. I want everybody to see. Oh, fine. This is Alon. He's my 22-year-old nephew. And we are two sisters. He's the eldest. He's just like my son also. Alon is a beautiful person, inside and out. He's very quiet. He's very joyful. He's lovable. Always has a lot of friends surrounding him. He just got back a month ago. That's like 3 months ago, from his big trip to the east. He was at Vietnam, Thailand, India, having a great time. He flew there by himself. But when this happened, we got so many messages from so many people who saw them on his trip, and they had to write us that they remember him, that he had this kind of imprint that everyone felt from him, something that he left in their hearts. And this is the kind of person he is. He's also a musician and a very talented pianist, loves music. And that's why on the 7th of October, he went to the Nova Festival in the south. We all live in the north, in different villages in the north, but we live there in peaceful coexistence with Arab villages, Muslims, Christians, Bedouins, Druze, and it's always very peaceful. On the 7th of October, the phone rang and rang and rang. In the morning, we were sleeping. It was my mom. She was very upset. She told me, "Do you know what's going on in the south? There's a war starting there, and Alon is there." And I didn't know of his whereabouts then, but she told me that he went down to the south to that festival. And at the last time that we heard of him was at 8:08 in the morning when he sent his father a message, "Dad, I'm okay. I'm at a bomb shelter." Maybe you've heard of Hirsch Goldberg and his story. Well, that's Alon's story also. They were together at the same bomb shelter where there were 30 people in that small cubicle that usually only 5 to 10 maximum people can go inside. But there were 30 people inside, and they were just thinking that they're getting somewhere to be during those rockets sending from Gaza, taking cover, and that's all. But a few minutes passed, and then the Hamas came. And luckily, at that time, they had a bit of luck, and Anel Shapira was a soldier at that music festival, and he was there in the bomb shelter in the entrance, and he very quickly understood what was going on when the Hamas were throwing inside grenades. And he decided very bravely at that second that he's going to try and save those other people. With his bare hands, he took those grenades one by one and threw them out of the bomb shelter. We actually know of all of this happening from Alon's friend, because Alon went to the festival with 6 of his other friends, and one of them did survive from that bomb shelter. He got to the hospital that same night, and when he met his father, the first thing that he told his father was, "Tell Alon's family that I saw that Hamas have been kidnapped him." So later on, we heard all of that story that was going on at the bomb shelter, that one grenade did succeed in exploding, and many got hurt. And after the explosion, the Hamas came in looking for someone that was still alive, and they took from that bomb shelter 4, Alon, Hirsch, Or, and Elia, because they could walk out of the bomb shelter. And they put them on a truck and took them to Gaza. Luckily, we do have eyewitnesses that saw all that. And 2 weeks later, we also got a Hamas footage of what was happening outside of the bomb shelter. And we can see that they dragged Alon by his hair. When Alon was fine, he was not hurt, and pulled him up that truck and drove to Gaza. We have not heard from Alon since then, from the 7th of October. There were hostages that were released, but no one saw either of those 4 that were kidnapped from that bomb shelter. So till today, and it has been 66 days today, we have no recollection of their whereabouts or their well-being. But the same day that that happened, and my sister understood that to cope with this, she needs to stay strong. Stay strong for herself, for his brother and sister, for our community, for the family. And she decided that she will be positive and very hopeful. And she is very busy and doing good deeds for herself and for the community, because she believes if you do good, you get back. And because Alon is a very talented pianist, she had a piano that had been donated, displayed in the Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. And she's also an artist, so on that piano, she designed a sign that says, "Alon, you're not alone." To give us hope, to give them strength. And people that come to that square and play that piano actually don't feel alone, because when they play the piano, a lot of people surround them to listen to the music, so they don't feel alone. And we believe that the beautiful music that is playing on that piano is somehow been sent to Gaza and strengthens Alon and the other hostages. And that's what we're doing these days to cope with this situation. And we are very hopeful that we will succeed in bringing all those hostages back healthy, but not alone, only with your help and your support. And this is why I decided to leave my 3 kids at home and travel all the way here to amplify Alon's voice and the other hostages. Hopefully, together, we will all bring them back. Thank you.
We have a little clip of Alon playing from his recital. I just want to listen to him playing the piano together with you, and let's just send Alon our love, okay? Because he's coming back to us. If you'd be so kind as to play that. I always take away Noga's relentless positivity and optimism and hope. We have to keep strong with those feelings, because that's how we're going to get them back. On October 7th, it was not just Jews that died. It was Israeli Arabs, Muslims, Christians, members of 30 different countries and nationalities, Druze. And we are blessed today to have one of our Druze brothers with us. And Amir, if you'd be so kind, before you tell us about your friends who are hostages in Gaza tonight, to tell us just a little bit about your community, the Druze.
Hi everyone. Like Mati said, I'm a Druze. For those who doesn't know, the Druze are a small religion in Israel. They basically came out of the Muslims 100 of years ago. It was in Egypt, and because like they decided they don't believe anymore in Muslims' principles, so they have to run away from them. So they went north to Israel, Syria, and Lebanon, and they settled down at the top of the mountains over there. And we have a similar tradition, culture like the Muslims. We speak Arabic, music, and everything, but like different religious principles. And one of the principles is being loyal to the land that we are in. So the Druze in Israel are loyal to Israel. They serve in the army. They pay taxes, like the rest of the civilians. And I'm telling all of this just because I want to show you it's not only about being Jewish in Israel, it's about being an Israeli. It's about, when we're talking about these animals, Hamas terrorists, it's about being humans. My story with Gaza actually started 15 years ago. My brother was killed in Gaza, my big brother. He was a soldier in Golani Unit. He was 19 years old. And like my friends here said, that when we're talking about soldiers, so we know that this is their mission. This is their role, to go and protect the country and protect the citizen of Israel. But when we're talking about the people that been taken hostages, it wasn't their mission. And I'm here to talk about my Noah. Noah is my roommate and one of my best friends. I met her a year and a half ago. We traveled together in India. And since then, we never left each other. We both students in Beersheba. So half a year ago, we decided to move in together. And we just have fun, you know, a lot of people, students in Beersheba. We have a group of friends which like this kind of parties and everything. So we usually go to these places and events, and it's like really normal. The festivals like Nova. And when I describe Noah, so I just choose one word, freedom. She's a freedom girl. She always believed in freedom. When people ask her, what do you want to do? So she was just saying, follow your heart, and what needs to happen will happen. And everything is very peace with her. And she went to this festival to celebrate this freedom after a rough year she had, which I explain about it in a minute. Her freedom has been taken by this terrorist. October 7, I remember I was in my home, actually in the north, with my family. And we heard about this massive rockets attack. But in Israel, it's kind of normal. We don't get nervous from this. You know that you have to go to the shelter for 15 minutes, and after that, everything is going to be okay. This is what we used to, unfortunately. And it did happen in the same morning, but an hour later, we started to hear in the news that the terrorists are getting inside Israel. For the first time, we hear something like this. And at that moment, we started to get nervous because we know that Noah and Avinatan and other 4 friends are with them. So we started texting them, try to call them, see what is going on. No one answering us. So we continuing doing it, and around 8:30, I think, Noah texted one of our friends. They are shooting on us. I'm sending you my location. Please help us. And that was the last message we got from Noah. And half an hour later, we got a picture from Avinatan, her boyfriend, when you can see Noah is lying on the ground, and Avinatan is holding her, and his face horrified. And it's just devastating to see people, friends of you, people that are close to you, in this situation, and there's nothing to help them. And you know that our home it feels like it's not safe anymore, and the freedom has been taken. A week before, I remember I was texting with Noah, and we were planning to do a party in our apartment. And at 12th of October, a week, a couple of days after October 7, it was her birthday. So we were arguing about which day to do it. We should do it on the same day, or a week after when the study is starting. And it's crazy how things can change in 1 minute without knowing everything. And we have been talking about doing party, and now she is hostage in Gaza. So after we got these messages, we around 12, we got a video when you can see Noah, and actually I can see over there a poster which made me cry now. When you can see Noah on being kidnapped on motorcycle and screaming for her life, "Don't kill me," and Avinatan is being dragged by some of these terrorists behind her. And this moment changed your life because, like I said, you will never feel safe again when you see something like this. You will never know what can happen tomorrow, in 1 week or more. Noah is an only child for her parents. Her mother is originally from China. She came to Israel for a student exchange, and she met Noah's father. And because of she's only child, she always have been independent and like freedom, like I said before. And they said she had a rough year because when we were traveling in India, so her father called her in the last week and told her that her mother got a cancer, a brain cancer. And I remember now in that moment that she understand, okay, I now need to be with my family. I need to do everything to help my mother. And that's what she did. She used to go to her parents' home every week and help her mother. She used to take her to all of her treatments, bought her medicines, everything that she could, she did. And this period, the doctors, like Noah's mother had a surgery a month ago, and they said that it's not a lot of time left because it's terminal brain cancer and there is no cure for it. So they said that she got only a few weeks, maybe months or two left. And I just think it's a basic right for each one of us to see our mother in her last moments. And I think it's basic right for her mother to see her daughter for her last moments. And 4 months ago, I sat with Noah, we just drank coffee, and like I talked with her about all the situation with her mother. And she told me like, there's people that when they have something like this, they choose to go and find any medicines and pay a lot of money and do everything they can just to, I don't know, delay it or try to do anything else. But she understands it's just about being together and just enjoy the time that they had. And this terrorist just destroyed it and destroyed this family. And we need to do everything to get her back and all of the hostages to get back to their families because each one of them, it's a big story and it's a big family. And it's just devastating to know that they are under these bad conditions in Gaza. But we're strong, like Noga said. Me and my friends are going to Noah's families every week. We help them, everything they need, and we will keep doing it. And we're here just to get your support and amplify their voices and show the world the real stories that happen over there. And we need to do everything to get them back. Thank you.
Thank you, Emil. 137 hostages, prorated for the American population, is over 4,000 people taken. And every one of them is a story with a family. Now, I'd like to turn to Eli to tell you about his brother, Eviatar.
I'll do the same as you. So, good evening, everybody. I'm glad you're here. I'm here to talk about my younger brother, Eviatar, the smiling, handsome man on the screens right now. He's 22 years old, and by the Hebrew calendar, he will turn 23 on the 8th day of Hanukkah. And like Hanukkah symbolizes the victory of light upon darkness, I think also my brother symbolizes the light that he brings to my life and to my family's life and to this world. I mean, he's that kind of man that if you have a problem or you need an advice, you go to him. He will sit quietly and listen, and he will give you a humble, good advice. He was supposed to fly to Thailand with his friends last week and then continue to Japan. He saved money for that trip for 2 years, working hard in a restaurant, just having fun like a man in his age should be doing. But instead of that, he's somewhere being held by murderous people in Gaza. My brother also is a big fan of music, and he plays the guitar with great talent. He loves especially hard rock, and he can sit hours in his room trying to learn a new solo, and he will just stay and practice till he gets it perfectly. And he also loves parties and festivals and electronic music and dancing, and that's what got him to that festival, the Nova Festival. So it was just another Friday night Shabbat dinner, and he was barely eating because he was so excited about this festival going on. So I gave him a hug and a kiss like every Shabbat dinner, and he took my mom's car, picked up his friends, and left south. And by the next morning, on the October 7th, we woke up to the sirens at 6:30 a.m. And in Israel, it means that rockets are being shot at us, and we kind of used to it. So we ran to the bomb shelter, and my mom started texting my brother. And he wrote to her, "They're blowing up the party," literally. And he actually managed to make us feel that everything's cool, everything's all right. And only an hour later, when the connection with him lost, we started to get worried. And then we also saw what's going on the news. We saw that there's a full-scale attack on Israel, that the festival became complete chaos, that terrorists stormed the festival and killed. We didn't know then how much, but we knew that there's a lot of dead, and that there's many hiding, and also his friends won't answer at some point. So I was sure that he's done for by that point, because that's what my mind, how it operates. So my clever sister, she posted on her personal Instagram page a photo of my brother. She's 18 years old, and she knows how to operate these things better than any of us. She posted her cell phone calling for help, and simultaneously we checked every internet site, every hospital site. We scanned social media to search for his name in lists that were published. But we found nothing. Until by midday, my sister got a message from an unknown number, and he asked her if we heard something about my brother. And she said no. Then he said, I think I recognize your brother in a video. Then he sent her a screenshot. And there he was, his face, with a black mark. And we didn't believe, so I asked the full video, and it had a link to Telegram, which maybe you know, maybe you don't. There were hundreds of videos, horrible things that Hamas did, and they recorded anything and posted it on Telegram. So I took her phone because I was afraid that that's one of these horrible videos, and I didn't want my family, to see this. So I took it, and in the video, again, Hamas propaganda with white logo on the screen, scary music on the background, and we saw 5 young men inside of a dark room. They were all tied up by the hands, by the legs. Some of them were sitting, some of them were lying on the floor. And they were all terrified. They were all looking into the camera with primal fear in their eyes. My brother was with his chest facing the floor, also looking to the camera. And I became so full of rage, and I felt so helpless because a big brother supposed to protect his little brother, and that's something I couldn't do. So in that video, we also recognized his best friend from kindergarten. And a few days after, we got a message that 2 of the other friends that he went there to the festival with are slaughtered. And it took 3 or 4 days to recognize their bodies because they were destroyed. So that's the last picture that I have from my brother, his terrified face. But somehow I am thankful for that, because I have a sign of life. I have a proof that he's alive, and we can still save him. We can still put an end to this nightmare. I think that the most absurd part of that situation is that so many people went to these festivals, so many civilians went there to celebrate and have fun and enjoy their life, celebrate peace and brotherhood. And the fact that they are young and beautiful, and hundreds of them murdered, dozens of them kidnapped. And we need to negotiate on them. So, we also know that they are being held in horrifying conditions, that are being abused on a daily basis, physically and mentally. And they are in a real danger for their lives. And it's urgent. And we can save them together. So thank you for listening.
So yesterday was International Human Rights Day. Yeah, you get the irony of that. Actually, even perhaps more ironically, the International Human Rights Day was founded by the UN in 1948 to address the atrocities that the Nazis perpetrated on Jews. Now, we are getting a lot of information, as Eli alluded to, from our our returned hostages about severe abuse that they suffered, sexual abuse, starvation, dehydration, not giving older people medicines that they needed. The list goes on, but somehow the world is silent. And somehow the International Red Cross, whose job it is to visit the hostages and ensure their safety, is absent. They seem to have no problem getting to Hamas. And that's something that we can do something about. But it's time for us to call on the world to acknowledge these abuses and for everyone to focus on bringing our hostages back. And we've heard a lot about some of these beautiful young kids who went to a festival to celebrate peace and ended up in Gaza. But I want to turn it over now to Moran to talk about her best friend who was in Kibbutz Be'eri.
Thank you, Mati. Maybe I'll stand so you can see me. I'm here to speak for Carmel. Carmel has been a very close friend of mine for more than 20 years. She's a very talented occupational therapist. She helped people overcome extreme difficulties and find their way in the world. Carmel is a free spirit. She often pose her life and just go for a new adventure in the world on her own. 8 months ago, she was visiting me for a few days, and I took her to meet one of my friends who had cancer, stage 4. And while we were talking, he mentioned that in 2 days he needs to go through biological treatment that he was actually supposed to go through 6 months before, but every time he went to the hospital, he came back home without doing so because he was so scared he will not overcome it. And Carmel tried to understand his fears, but that evening he didn't feel very well and we came back home. But 2 days later, while she was still with me, I've heard her calling him, asking, "Are you okay? How do you feel before the treatment?" And I watched her doing her magic and helping him in an hour conversation to unfold his fears and empower him. And that morning he went through the treatment. So that is Carmel. She connects with people. She embraces their vulnerability and helps them to identify their strength. On October 7th, I woke up from a massive attack of rockets and alarming sirens, and I ran with my kids to the bomb shelter. And I knew that Carmel came back from a 2-month travel in India and was visiting her parents in Kibbutz Be'eri. And there, they only have less than 50 seconds to go to a safe room before the rockets hit. So I immediately texted her and asked, "Are you okay? Where are you?" And she said that she is with her parents and her brother and her sister-in-law and little niece in the safe room. And she sent me a picture of her drawing with little Geffen, her niece. And that was fine. As you heard, like muscles is not something we are not used to, unfortunately. But an hour later, about 8 o'clock, I've read that several terrorists have managed to break into the border fence and evade the territory that is around Kibbutz Be'eri. So I texted her again and asked, do you know what happened? And she answered that she knows, and they are hearing people speaking Arabic just outside and some shootings, and are really waiting for it to end. So I asked her to let me know if something happens. And 15 minutes later, I asked her again, are you okay? And I didn't hear from her. And the message didn't go through all day. And so later I found out that the Hamas managed to break into their safe room, and they first took her mom, and they tied her hands and took her out, and a few minutes after they brutally murdered her. And then they took Carmel out, and then they took her brother Alon and sister-in-law Yarden and little Geffen. Her father was then in the bathroom, so luckily he managed to hide and survive, although they did shoot the toilet door. And he saw from the bathroom window Carmel giving her car keys to the Hamas terrorists, because they took many cars that were there. Her brother Alon and sister-in-law and little Geffen managed to jump off the Hamas car just before they crossed the border and ran for their lives. They were barefoot, all of them. And Yarden realized she's not running fast enough, so she handed little Geffen to Alon and told him run. And he managed to run with her and hide in complete silence in the bushes for more than 12 hours. And then after 24 hours, they arrived safely to the kibbutz. But Yarden was grabbed and kidnapped by Hamas. So it was more than 50 days that we didn't know anything about Carmel and anything about Yarden. As you've heard, some people were able to find some footage on the Hamas on social network that Hamas posted, but we were not able to do so. We searched. The family have seen all the horrific videos that Hamas posted, but there was nothing about the two of them, and they were defined as missing persons. Back then, I think there were like more than 40. There still are people like that are defined as missing. And the reason is because some of the bodies, many bodies actually, were burned with very strong chemical materials, so it was really difficult to identify. Some parts of body were all over. So it was a very difficult time to go through and to keep the hope that they are both alive. But after 52 days, several hostages were released, as you've heard, and 2 hostages told us that they were kidnapped with Carmel, and they stayed all together in one room. And they also told us that Carmel was the person who kept their spirit up, and she did meditation with them and yoga with them and really helped them to go through this hard time. So that was a very happy moment for all of us. But they also told us about the horrific thing that they went through, and other hostages also told us about difficult things that they've been through. And Carmel is left alone there because the two of them are released, and they were only the three of them, and she is a woman, and a very beautiful woman, and we are very, very concerned. Her sister-in-law Yarden was released after 2 days, and that was also very happy news. They were not together. But Carmel is still there, and there are 17 women that are still there, and there are many hostages that we don't know anything about them. And this is really bigger than us, and we really ask you to help and amplify all those voices and help us to bring them home. We cannot really allow that people would just disappear from their house, just like that, with their pajamas, grabbed from their bed with nothing. Many of people that live in Kibbutz Be'eri were really peacemakers. They worked with Palestinians. Carmel was studying Arabic to communicate better. This is not really the reality we want to live in, and we hope you can help us to bring them all home soon. Thank you.
So we try to meet the resilience of the people that you hear here with the Family Forum. And we have with us two of the volunteers from the entire volunteer-run organization in Tel Aviv. And I'll ask you, Gilad, just to share a little bit about how the forum was created and some of your experiences.
Hi, everyone. So the forum was formed just 2 days after October 7th, exponentially grew to over 1,500 volunteers, all volunteers, within a couple of weeks. We are occupying 4 floors in a building right in the center of Tel Aviv that was given to us by a high-tech company, free of charge for a year, everything paid. And we have hundreds of volunteers going around Eilat and the Red Sea, and where a lot of the families are, also in the south. The forum has 2 main purposes. One is to effect the quickest possible release of the hostages. And we are using multiple teams to try and bring that about. We have a legal team who's pursuing international legal action against Hamas, against the Qataris, Iran, Red Cross, whomever and wherever we think it may help. There is a negotiations team who have experience from the release of Gilad Shalit a few years ago. There is diplomatic team with ex-diplomats who are going around the world and trying to make diplomatic efforts for the release. There are delegations like this who are traveling all over the world to solicit exposure, awareness, political support in every country that we can think of. Communications, both domestic and international communications, very large media team, advertising, all of Publicis Israel practically moved to our offices, CEO, COO, and down, and are doing phenomenal work and spending a lot of money on billboards, on social media, on every channel possible to try and keep this issue of the hostages, even more than 2 months after that, alive and kicking and at the headline news everywhere in the world. In parallel, there's another effort of supporting the families. And just think of the scale. And we're talking about close to 200 families. And immediate families, broader families, and close friends. So it's thousands of people who need help now, both mental health, a lot of mental health support. We have a team of close to 30 professionals who've been doing work around the clock for more than 2 months now, as well as physical and financial support for the families. Some of those families literally lost their homes. They've been burned or destroyed or dislocated from their homes. And some have lost their breadwinners. And they need immediate help. And we are hoping for the fast release of the hostages, but even if all the hostages return home tomorrow, we know that there is a very long healing process for both the hostages and their families. We know the conditions they are under, at least some of them from testimonials of hostages who came back, and this will require very prolonged effort for thousands of people over at least a year. Not that I think it will end after a year, but hopefully after a year we'll be able to hand it over to the authorities in Israel, who can then take over and continue. I want to tell you three things with your permission. This is the last event that we're having in this week of delegation. I want to tell you three things. One, on a personal note, I'm exhausted. And I don't get exhausted easily. We landed on Wednesday and we touched down 6 a.m. after 15 hours flight, jet lagged. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, we were already at Netflix talking. And it's been all go ever since. At least 2 or 3 events like this a day, 4 here in Las Vegas today, plus local and national interviews. The second thing is, these people are much more exhausted than me. Far more. They've been doing more, and they have that heavy burden on their shoulders of their family members or close friends being held somewhere. And that's the third point. We're all doing this because the hostages, however exhausted we are, it doesn't even come close. It doesn't come close. And so we have to do it. We just have to do it. And we really, really appreciate having such a big crowd here. But it's nothing. There's so much more people out there that we need to reach. And the only way for us to reach them is with you, with your help. So share and tell and invite your friends and tell them what you saw and what you've heard, and write to your congressman. And you can get online on our website and very easily write to your congressman. He will generate the letter for you automatically. Write to support your representatives who are doing something about it, and write to tell the representatives who aren't how come they don't take action in the name of humanity. Because if you're part of the human race, there's no way that you're not going to take action for this. We also need financial support. I've never asked people for money in my life, thankfully. I've never been in this position. I'm asking you now. Think of the numbers, of the scale, of the thousands of people, and do the multiples, however you want to multiple it with, by, okay? A year long of treatment or financial support for families who are in such dire situation. And we need your support and everyone who knows support. And only in similar multiples can we reach the extent that we need to extend to help the families and the hostages. So I really appreciate you coming here. Thank you so much.
I want to underscore how important your financial support is to this organization. Whatever you can give, please do. And I want to thank Jewish Nevada and IAC for being able to just pass the money through to us. 100% of the money is going to go directly towards supporting the family of the hostages and the hostages. And we have our other volunteer with us, Rebecca. And Rebecca, if you would just take a minute to tell everyone sort of how the organization is run, how their money is handled, what the money goes for very clearly, that would be really great.
Hello. So, as you've heard, the organization is new. It was a pop-up. It came together 2 days after the crisis, maybe even 1 day after, and it was 10 people. And when I joined, it was really, I sit on the board of a foundation that is both Canadian and Israeli, and it's the largest nonprofit foundation in Canada that's not corporate, and the same for Israel. And we were asked to help these people come together as an organization and to give them money to start their activity. And we obliged. And then I realized that it's just, doesn't scratch the surface. And so we asked every foundation we know to match. And they did. Everyone's been very generous. But this is such a big undertaking. And what started as a pop-up is now 2,000 people strong almost in volunteers. But there is a lot of cost that is connected to advocacy, which we are doing internationally. And so we spend a lot of money on media, and there is a lot of cost involved in operating a facility where there are over 600 people a day that are in a facility that are fed and provided with everything that they need in order to be functional and to work in a group environment. There are events, there are rallies, everything. All of these things are extremely cost effective, and all of that is being paid for by these donations. So what started out as a pop-up is now a full-fledged organization, and we have put parameters in place so that everything is done in the most due diligence way. And we have a 501c3, and we are fully accredited and regulated at this point. So that is how we operate, and if you have any further questions, feel free to ask, and we'll be glad to answer. Hopefully we won't be there for very long, and any money that we collect that we don't use for those purposes will be distributed amongst the families equally to provide them with financial aid going forward for as long as we can. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for allowing us to come and visit your beautiful community. Thank you for letting us share our stories with you. Thank you for your support and for your love. We can't do it alone. Am Yisrael Chai. Chag Sameach, everybody.
Just before you leave, I'd like to have DJ join us for singing of Tikva. Thank you.
Let us all sing together, please. Kol od balevav penima nefesh Yehudi homia ulefatek mizrach kadima ayin letzion Sophia. Od lo avda tikvatenu, ha-tikva bar shnot alpayim, liotam chovshi be'atzenu, Eretz Sion Verushalayim, liotam chovshi be'atzenu, Eretz Sion Verushalayim. Thank you all for being here. Am Yisrael Chai.